Good afternoon to you. 3:06 now. News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we are making sense of the news. Coming up next hour, 4 o'clock, Batya Ungar Sargon will be with us, the opinion editor over at Newsweek, with a reaction to those disastrous America-hating Oscars last night. Can they stop with that? No, they can't. Kate Anderson joins us at 4:30 from the Daily Caller News Foundation. We'll talk about the medical industry. One of the top doctors' conferences on the planet is very upset that people who don't want to change their gender exist. And Congressman Mike Collins from Georgia is here at 5:30. We're going to talk to him about Laken Riley. Remember, Congressman Collins held a seat open for her memory at the State of the Union this past week. A lot to talk about with him, a lot to talk about with you at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Joe Biden is a disgrace. Joe Biden is an utter disgrace. For him to go on television this weekend on MSNBC and express that he regrets referring to Laken Riley's murderer, the man who bashed her head in, he regrets referring to that person as an illegal, or in the proper government term, illegal alien. It's a descriptive phrase. In fact, Biden himself was claiming technically he's not supposed to be here. Remember when he was asked about this past week? It was on Friday. He was asked, hey, why did you use the word illegal to describe Laken Riley's murderer? And here's how Biden answered.
Do you regret using the word illegal to describe immigrants last night, sir?
Well, I don't regret it. Technically not supposed to be here.
Technically, he's not supposed to be here. Ipso facto, therefore, illegal. Illegal immigrant. Illegal alien, more specifically. A foreign national who invaded our country. Not supposed to be here. He went into the custody of the Biden administration, you know, and also Democrat-controlled New York, you also know. And then both of those jurisdictions released this man back into the country, so they bear the culpability of having made things a lot less safe here. Joe Biden bears the culpability for this, as so many have rightly pointed out. He has blood on his hands. They were reticent to even say Laken Riley's name. It's the whole reason Marjorie Taylor Greene made a scene at the State of the Union. Say her name, Laken Riley. He said, I can say her name. Her name's Lincoln Riley. He said he got her name completely wrong. And then he said he agreed that she was killed by an illegal. And then he's talked about the many thousands of other Americans who are killed by legals. That's what he said. And in case you're wondering if that was just a mess up on the part of you and I, what we heard from the President of the United States, the White House's transcript of his remarks at the State of the Union says legal, that thousands of people have been killed by legals, Biden said during the State of the Union. And that brings us to this weekend. Jonathan Capehart interviewing Joe Biden on MSNBC. Jonathan Capehart is a man of the left. And this has become a debate on the left. Not how do we stop Laken Riley's from being murdered. No, not how we protect our college girls across the country. Not how we protect American citizens. Not how we make our streets safer. Not how we stop people from getting in who shouldn't be here. That's not the debate on the left today. As always, the debate on the left is about the terms, about the mind control, about how do we prevent the American people from being able to think clearly about this issue. So instead of using the word illegal, they want Joe Biden to use the phrase undocumented to soften the American people to the idea that foreign nationals are breaking our laws, to create a permission structure for that. So that's the obsession of the left. I heard today Juan Williams over on the Fox News channel, he was seated alongside my good friend Chris Bedford. The two of them were engaged in a debate over this subject. And you had Fox's John Roberts asked about this. What's going on here? And Juan Williams said, well, Republicans have decided to debate this term. Republicans? This is not a Republican debate. Republicans didn't raise a stink about Biden referring to this killer as an illegal. It was an accurate description. If anything, Republicans were surprised to hear it come out of Joe Biden's mouth. It's the left that's angry at Biden, and it's the left that has led to this idiocy this weekend. Here's Joe Biden and Jonathan Capehart.
I noticed the look of surprise on your face when you walked into the chamber and you saw Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. It was priceless. You feigned shock at seeing her. But during your response to her heckling
priceless.
of you, you used the word illegal when talking about the man who allegedly killed Laken Riley.
An undocumented person. And I shouldn't have used illegal. It's undocumented. And look, when I spoke about...
Well, even that, by the way, even that is garbage. If you're trying to be literal about it, he's undocumented? Really? Well, then how do we know he was in the custody of the United States government and then subsequently released? Are there documents to that effect? Well, yes, there are. Of course, there's a paper trail for this guy's custody and subsequent release into the United States. He's not undocumented. Even that is a lie. Even that is a lie. They think that it's like, you know, the kind of thing that they can express that's technically true, but it conceals that he came into the country illegally. It's not technically true. Even that component is a lie. I should have said undocumented. Why? That would just be another lie.
Man who allegedly killed Laken Riley.
An undocumented person. And I shouldn't have used illegal. It's undocumented. And look, when I spoke about the difference between Trump and me, one of the things I talked about on the border was that the way he talks about vermin, the way he talks about these people polluting the blood.
I'm sorry, what do you call somebody who kills Laken Riley? She was jogging. What did Laken Riley do to this man? Nothing. He brutalized her. He killed her. He stopped her from calling 911. He dragged her into the woods. What? Is that guy not vermin in your view? He shouldn't be criticized for that action? Biden is acting like he's got the noble position here. You know what really is worth doing? Defending foreign nationals who murder American citizens.
One of the things I talked about on the border was that the way he talks about vermin, the way he talks about these people polluting the blood. I talked about what I'm not going to do, what I won't do. I'm not going to treat any of these people with disrespect. Look, they built the country.
I can't disrespect a murderer. I can't do that. Look, they built the country, he says. Who built the country? By his definition, undocumented people built the country? Or to be more specific, illegal aliens built the country? That's not true at all. That is not true at all. The ancestors of American citizens built this country. That's the truth. And here you have Biden lying. It's disgraceful. And he's twisting himself into these ridiculous knots to suck up to the most radical elements of his party. That it is a total disgrace. I said it before. I'll say it again. And then today, aboard Air Force One, Joe Biden's visiting the swing states right now, and they're pumping him full of Adderall as he makes each stop in the hopes that he can survive it, speaking English. On Air Force One today, a White House spokeswoman who works for Coringe by the name of Olivia Dalton was asked about this. Oh, so Biden apologized this weekend, on MSNBC. Oh, no, he didn't. Now they're playing word games again.
Interview with Jonathan Capehart. President Biden apologized for calling Laken Riley's killer an illegal. Does he feel like he needs to apologize to illegal immigrants for calling them what they are, for using the term illegal?
Well, first of all, I want to be really clear about something. The president absolutely did not apologize. There was no apology anywhere in that conversation. He did not apologize. He used a different word. I think what we should be really clear about is the facts.
What is she saying? He used a different word. Is she referring to illegal versus undocumented? Is that what she's referring to? Or is she referring to apology versus regret? Again, twisted word games designed to conceal and run away from his culpability.
Not apologize. He used a different word. I think what we should be really clear about is the facts. So, in addition to the fact that the president did not apologize,
oh my gosh,
I want to make another thing clear. The president spoke directly to this in the State of the Union address not 4 nights ago, when he spoke passionately about knowing what it means to lose a child and extended his deep grief and condolences to Laken Riley's family in front of the entire country.
I think, by the way, that is the first time, I may be wrong about this, but I do think that's the first time a White House official under Joe Biden has said the name Laken Riley. Biden himself said Lincoln Riley on Thursday night. So he was very direct. He expressed his condolences for the murder that he was a part of. What? He apologized for that? No, he didn't apologize. He expressed his condolences.
In the House chamber. And beyond that, I think it's unconscionable that there are some people who are playing politics with this young woman's tragic murder.
What she's referring to is the American people. She's upset that the American people have engaged in this conversation about the consequences of having Joe Biden in office. This is not good. Wait, you're saying you release foreign nationals into the country who subsequently go on to murder American citizens? That's a horrible thing, say the American people. Now the White House is attacking you for having that position.
And particularly at a time when, let's not forget, House Republicans are standing in the way
of an amnesty bill,
of a bipartisan border security agreement.
It's not a border security. It's another lie.
That is the toughest bill we have ever seen.
It gives money. It's a bailout fund for sanctuary cities. Did you know that? It gives tremendous amount of money to Democrat-run cities that protect illegal foreign nationals who come into our country and then live there. That actually happens. It accelerates work permits for illegal foreign nationals to make sure that they can compete in the American job market right away. Right away. So what is that to you? What would you think that, what would you call that if you had to describe it in one word or less, preferably with the letter A at the beginning of it? Amnesty. It's an amnesty package. It doesn't start with a B. It's not border security. It's amnesty.
In history, and they're doing so because Donald Trump feels that the American people's safety is less important than his personal politics. That's the fact.
That's not the fact. That's not the fact. In fact, prioritizing the safety of the American people is an excellent reason to stop that bill. And in the State of the Union, Biden, as expected, raised the idea that, well, the Border Patrol Union supports the bill. Well, we talked to Brandon Judd right here on this program. What was it, 2 weeks ago? Not even 2 weeks ago. The head of the Border Patrol Union. I asked him about this because it is true. They had signaled their support for the bill when it first came out. And when I talked to him, and I've seen him now in subsequent interviews since our conversation, say over and over, we like the bill as a vehicle for border security. We think something's better than nothing, but that bill needed to be amended. There are problems with it, the Border Security Union said. So that's their actual position on this subject. That's their actual position. And the White House keeps, as you might expect, lying to you about all of this. Let me go to Jeff now in Hagerstown, line 2. Jeff, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
All right. Thanks for taking my call, Vince.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to try to keep this as on point as I can. You could feel the suction out of every orifice from the communist left in that room when Joe Biden used those words, illegal alien. It was you could just feel the cringing and the teeth clenching and everything else. And they must have really done a heck of a job to get him on the air immediately to backpedal that thing. I mean, this is just despicable. And you know, the difference between what happened, what we know when Joe Biden got elected 4 years ago, and what we know now from the past 4 years, that's got to take us to victory for the right. That's all there is to it. This has got to be over, dude.
Yes.
I'd like to hear what you have to say about that.
I agree with you. So long as the will of the voters is accurately reflected in the election, it will be a landslide by that measure. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. But I think you're right, Jeff. I mean, this is a sign of the fascistic quality of the left. He said something true out loud. All he said was she was killed by an illegal. He got her name wrong, but he did correctly point out that she was killed by an illegal. Acknowledged that fact. And that was the most controversial part of the entire speech in the eyes of the American left. To say something true that is off of their script is a cardinal sin. And they have spent the weekend beating him back into submission. That's the president of the United States who is bending to their whim on the wording. Again, it was totally true, and now he regrets. He literally said he regrets saying it. That really tells you everything.
Hey, Vince, can I give another shout-out?
Yes.
I'd like to give a shout-out to Alejandro Malodorous for just being that man is so low. That man is so low, he has to reach up to touch bottom. I swear, this guy is just the biggest deflector, and to see him smiling out there in the audience in the chamber while Joe was talking, I just wanted to jump through the TV screen and just. It's just this. Obviously, I'm emotional right now, but dude, come on, man. This has got to be over. I'm not living the rest of my life with 4 more years of this crap.
I know, Jeff. I'm with you, man. This is disgrace upon disgrace. They're all working together. Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate the call and the emotion on it. Back to the phones we go. Dave is calling in from Rockville, Maryland, line 2. Dave, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show. Hello.
Yes, good afternoon. Love the program.
Thank you, sir.
I just wanted to point out something in regards to the president's comment about Laken Riley and that tragedy.
Yes.
I think we're missing something. The idea, he said that there was the one that she was killed by the illegal, as opposed to the 1,000 killed by the legals. Well, wait a minute. As if the 1,000 killed by the legals was okay? No, I don't think so. What is the role of the Biden Department of Justice in seeing that number gets pounded down? That's way out of control now. And he needs to own some responsibility for the outrageous loss of life that's going in our urban areas.
Yes. No, you're right to note that he was attempting to whitewash her death at the same moment that he was trying to check the box of acknowledging it. In fact, this is what Joe Biden said last Thursday.
It's not about him. It's not about me. I'd be a winner. Not really. Laken Riley, an innocent young woman who was killed by an illegal. That's right. But how many of the thousands of people being killed by illegals? To her parents, I say, my heart goes out to you, having lost children myself. I understand.
And then, of course, he brings up Beau Biden. It's a classic Biden moment at the State of the Union as he tries to run away from his own culpability, whitewash the death of a girl whose actual name is Laken Riley. It's unbelievable. On that question of what are voters thinking about all of this, well, have you seen the surveys lately? Especially non-white voters are fleeing the Democrats in droves. What's happening there? I'll explore that coming up next. Hey, good afternoon. 3:35 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Hey, coming up, Batya Ungar-Sargon will be with us. She's over at Newsweek. We'll talk to her about the out-of-control Oscars last night. There was a weird moment, many weird moments, but there was I guess a couple of Jewish actors who won an award who said that they were refuting their Jewishness last night, standing in solidarity with the people who attacked Israel. What's that about? Batya will break that down for us. Kate Anderson is here from the Daily Caller News Foundation, as some of the top doctors in the country are angry that people who regret their, quote, gender transitions exist, trying to stop them from having a platform to speak. And then Mike Collins, the congressman from Georgia, joins us at 5:30. We'll talk Laken Riley with him. You can join us, 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. So, yes, the left has been going crazy over Biden, using the word illegal last Thursday, and they've beaten him into submission now. He's like, I meant to say undocumented. I regret saying illegal. Meanwhile, Donald Trump was in Georgia over the weekend. Congressman Mike Collins was there. And again, he joins us at 5:30. And Donald Trump was in Rome, Georgia over the weekend, and he met with Laken Riley's family, actually, and welcomed them to his rally. And he met with them backstage. And when he came out on stage, he relayed the conversation he had just had. It's a big contrast from Joe Biden, who has never called Laken Riley's family and can't even say her name correctly.
But one of the lives that was taken from us was an incredible 22-year-old nursing student right here in Georgia, Laken Riley. Right? Look at the signs. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. From the time she was in the first grade, Laken's dream was to spend her life caring for others. And I met her beautiful mother and family backstage, sister, friends, some of her friends, a roommate. They said she was like the best. She was always the best. They admit that she was the best. And she was the first in her class. She was going to be the best nurse. She was the best nursing student. She was always the best. She was the brightest light in every room, they told me, and she was the whole world to her parents and to her sister, just to the whole family. Incredible. Then the unthinkable happened. 16 days ago, Laken went out for a morning jog. She was in great shape. She wanted to keep herself that way. And she never came back, never came back. They knew something was wrong.
Now, Trump goes on and he talks about what happened here and Joe Biden's culpability in all of it.
An illegal alien criminal who Joe Biden intentionally released into our country has been, and because he's released tens of thousands of people like this, tens of thousands, because you know they come from jails and they come from mental institutions. He released them into our country.
Yeah, and in fact, he's right about the details here. There have been countries whose crime rates have gone down, while ours have gone up. That's been true in Venezuela. That's true in many countries. And that's because they are, in the words of the media, they're exporting their criminals. Their criminals are coming here. Thanks, Joe.
Biden has implemented a formal policy that illegal aliens who intrude into the United States are granted immunity from deportation. Thus, when this monster showed up at our border, he was set free immediately under the program that Crooked Joe created.
Trump goes on to talk about how Biden had begun to reel back these statements this weekend with Jonathan Capehart. He said, it's no longer illegal. I should have said undocumented. I regret saying illegal.
But just moments ago, this was just before coming up, they just told me prior to what I'm doing right now, that Joe Biden went on television and apologized for calling Laken's murderer.
The White House is insisting it's not an apology, it's just regret.
And illegal. He didn't want to call him illegal. He apologized.
Yeah. I get the feeling that it's not just people who attend Trump rallies who are booing across the country right now.
He said he should have called him an undocumented, not an illegal, and he wanted to apologize.
You know, Trump takes the temperature on these types of events, right? He pays attention to what the crowd is doing, how they react to these things. And he decides what he wants to focus on in future rallies. What signal do you think he's getting from this moment?
He wanted to apologize.
Yeah, he wanted to apologize. Last one from Trump on who this guy really was.
I say he was an illegal alien. He was an illegal immigrant. He was an illegal migrant. And he shouldn't have been in our country, and he never would have been under the Trump policy. And Biden should be apologizing for apologizing to this killer.
Yeah, it's bizarre. It's, again, disgraceful what Biden's up to. Let me shift gears to the polling right now. Now, obviously, illegal immigration, the state of our border, it's usually the top issue right now in state after state. Certainly, that's been the exit polling in all of these primary votes. Occasionally, it's the economy, but they're neck and neck. It's the border and the economy. Not hard to see why. Both are in chaos. Both need to improve dramatically. That's what voters want. Crystal clear. From both parties, by the way. Especially those important swing voters, independent voters. Meanwhile, there is no racial component, despite the left trying to will racist division into everything. There is no racial track on this. Voters of all skin colors do not like the out-of-control economy and the out-of-control border. If you are a citizen of the United States of America, you oppose that. You oppose it. You want something better. And here's an interesting piece this week from a guy called John Byrne Murdoch, writing for the Financial Times. And he writes, American politics is undergoing a racial realignment. Now, give me a sense of whether or not this squares with what you're seeing around you. And you can always do that at 888, that is 630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. He writes, last week a New York Times poll showed President Joe Biden leading Donald Trump now by just 56 points to 44 among non-white Americans. 56-44. A group that he won by almost 50 points when the two men last fought it out for the White House in 2020. As things stand, the Democrats are going backwards faster with voters of color than any other demographic. Such startling statistics often meet accusations of polling error, but this cannot be written off as a rogue result. Data from America's gold standard national election surveys show the Democrats' advantage among Black, Latino, and Asian voters is at its lowest point since 1960. Figures from Gallup show the same steepening decline. Part of this is due to fading memories and weakening ties. Black Americans who lived through the Civil Rights era still support the party at very high levels, but younger generations are wavering. There's also the weakening correlation between income and voter choice in U.S. politics. The image of the GOP as the party of wealthy country club elites is dimming, opening the door to working and middle-class voters of all ethnicities. More ominous for the Democrats is a less widely understood dynamic. Many of America's non-white voters have long held much more conservative views than their voting patterns would suggest. The migration that we are seeing today is not so much natural Democrats becoming disillusioned, but natural Republicans realizing they've been voting for the wrong party. This is best illustrated by U.S. political researchers Ismail K. White and Cheryl N. Laird, whose eye-opening 2020 book, Steadfast Democrats, demonstrates the incongruity between many Black Americans' policy preferences and votes. Take deeply conservative positions such as support for gun rights or the belief that government should stay out of people's lives and let them succeed or fail on their own. Very few white voters who take these positions identify as Democrats. But larger shares of Black, Latino, and Asian conservatives do. History, culture, and community have long overridden this misalignment between non-white conservatives' policy positions and party choice. As recently as 2012, 3 in 4 Black self-identified conservatives were Democrats. But that has fallen to less than half. These voters won't be won back by a bold environmental policy or defunding the police. Their historical support for Democrats was an anomaly, and a further rightward shift is likely as it corrects. White and Laird's insight is that social networks play an important role. Among Black conservatives, whose social circles are predominantly Black, support for Republicans remains anemic. But among those whose friends, family, or colleagues are more diverse, social norms are much weaker, and support for the GOP rises. You following that? In other words, like if you're a Black person, if you're an African American who only associates with other African Americans, the data show statistically you're much more likely to be a Democrat voter. But if you engage with people of other skin colors, other races in your day-to-day life, chances are you're more open-minded about potentially supporting the GOP. That's what the data show, apparently. The writer goes on here, says, my extension of their analysis shows the same is true for other non-white groups. There are echoes of voters in Britain's Red Wall, the communities in northern England identified by pollster James Kanagasariam with conservative demographics and attitudes that had stopped short of voting Tory due to a long-held sense that the party was not for them. In 2019, that changed. By the way, this publication, the Financial Times, British. Non-white Americans are in a similar position. Strong community norms have kept them in the blue column. But those forces are weakening. The surprise is not so much that these voters are now shifting their support to align with their preferences, but that it took so long. As the U.S. becomes, pay attention to what I'm about to read. This is really important because this is the entire left's model. Racial segregation and division is their model. It is how they maintain power. So long as they can keep people divided, they can keep themselves in power. So pay attention to how the data demonstrate that that's the case. As the U.S. becomes less racially segregated, the frictions preventing non-white conservatives from voting for Republicans diminish. And this is a self-perpetuating process. Discovering Republicans among one's own group, that is your friend group, your social circles, your coworkers, if you discover that one of your coworkers is a Republican, it weakens the stigma of voting for Republicans. This, by the way, let me pause on this element to remind you, if you have conservative views, you should think carefully about maybe expressing them more often, especially in your social circles. Float some conservative views out there. See how they go. See what people say. You may have the capacity to change minds just on the basis of preaching common sense. It doesn't have to be intensely political. It could just be one of a million different common sense views that you probably don't vocalize out loud for fear that you might suggest to somebody you're a conservative. Discovering Republicans among one's own group further weakens the stigma. As Republican pollster Patrick Ruffini puts it in his 2023 book, Party of the People, this can create a preference cascade. Viewed in this light, the size of the shifts in current polling are entirely plausible. To be clear, nothing in politics is guaranteed. Some shifts are temporary, and many of those deserting the Democrats will become swing voters rather than solid Republicans. They can be won back, that is, by the left. But the left's challenge with non-white voters is much deeper than it first appears. A less racially divided America is an America where people vote more based on their beliefs than their identity. This is bad news for Democrats. Now, that's what John Byrne Murdoch is writing this week in the Financial Times. I think those last two sentences, they're appropriately the kicker on the piece, but they really sum up what we're seeing. The left has a scheme for how they maintain power. And insofar as the voters are involved in that, and by the way, they're looking for other options too, outside of the voters' control. And as you see these numbers move increasingly away from Democrats will become more and more totalitarian because they realize that the, quote, democracy that they talk about so much is not actually going to serve their power interests. But insofar as it does, they need to keep voters divided. Divided based on race. We saw that bear out big time in 2020. What was the point of all of that? Why did the left abide that? Why did they stoke it? Why was Kamala Harris doing fundraisers for criminals in Minneapolis? Why was she doing that? To maintain that division, to divide the voters against themselves, to make it so that the left could exploit that division for power. That was the game plan. Mission accomplished, 2020. The other piece I mentioned recently, is single, unmarried, childless women. It's the key demographic for voters, for Democrats, excuse me. It's the key voting demographic to maintain Democrat power. And it explains entirely why Democrats spend all of their time trying to keep women single, unmarried, and childless. So long as you stay in that posture, you are almost guaranteed to be a Democrat voter. If anything changes about your life there, you get married, you have a kid, they've lost you. They can't do that. That's why they obsess over this. It's why they obsess, and it's why abortion features so high on their list of priorities. What culture in their right mind would prioritize child sacrifice as its number one issue? Democrats do, because it helps them maintain power. Racial division and keeping women husband-free and child-free is essential to their power structure. Again, insofar as they rely on the voters to establish it. And you've got non-white voters all across the country who are done. They're done with this. They want big families. They want to be married. They don't want their kids to be taught garbage in schools. They want a sound economy. They want secure borders. And increasingly, they've decided, well, wait a second. This cultural pressure I've been under to vote for Democrats is insane. It's actually not serving me well. I've got to go somewhere else. Does it mean Republicans are like somehow totally entitled to your vote? Absolutely not. Republicans should be pressured big time to actually adhere to the will of the people. Because far too often they fall for the same crap Democrats do in Washington. But there is a meaningful difference between these two parties in a lot of big ways. And voters are waking up to it. With any luck, it'll be reflected this year. We'll see. I was talking to Corey and Ganamort before the show today, and he said, you wonder to what extent this is fool's gold to think that. And he's right to ask that question about non-white voters moving away from Democrats, and it seems like moving towards Republicans. Could be. But remember what Trump did. 2016, 2020, each passing election, more and more non-white voters voted for who? Him. The Hispanic vote is a coin toss, a literal coin toss right now. It's a 50-50 split right now. You can't say, oh, that person's Hispanic, therefore they will vote for. We have no idea. We have no idea. And black voters increasingly moving away from Democrats towards Republicans. I think it's a positive sign. It's a healthy sign for the country. And so long as American elections are decided by Americans, good things are ahead. We'll see. Coming up, Batya Ungar Sargon joins us from Newsweek with a review of the idiocy of last night's Oscars. There was a lot of it. We'll see if we can fit it all in.